Hey y'all, I had some good discussion with people on the chat. Yeah, we're talking about like SAQs, DBQs, LEQs, and honestly, for me, just before we start, honestly for me, I suck at SAQs. Just get it out of the way. But yeah, so welcome guys. So if you guys did the trivia game, good job. I was there for a while, and I think Goku won. So good job. Um, Let's see. I also see some familiar names. Sunny. I see Tanya. I see Dan once again with Goku, and I see some new faces too. So nice. So thank you guys for tuning in to Decolonization. So and yep, I'll talk about Unit 8. And once again, also weekly calendar. Today's History Day. So if you're curious after this stream, like we're gonna talk about the civil rights movement. If you're just curious or you wanna learn content ahead of time for some reason. So we also have causes of World War One. If you want to refresh in World War One in the European perspective. Yeah, first class with apes, nice. And oh yeah, hi. Tomorrow, if you weren't able to play, also we have polls by the way. So if you weren't able to play the decolonization trivia earlier, we have two trivia games, not one but two for Fiveable. But it covers Unit 1, 2, 3, 4, like 1 to 8, from the very beginning of your school year up to what we're learning today. So there's a game of fives tomorrow. It's more trivia. Um, I think once in the afternoon, once in the evening or night. It works for both all time zones. So yeah, more trivia for you guys. I think I sent the link earlier, but I'll send it again later once I do the email the slides. Quick plug. Think Fiveable. That's our social media handle. Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and probably TikTok. Mm-hmm. Um, and let's see. I'm gonna look at the chat real quick. Yeah. Some of you guys are taking like AP World with other classes, so I hope you guys are doing fine with balancing those with other class, especially now we're usually on online platforms and Google Classrooms, and yeah, we're still having intense debate on DBQs and SAQs in the chat, but yeah, it's each your own. So, all right, I will cloud we stand. Okay, in this stream, we're gonna talk about decolonization. I'm pretty sure some of those terms, if you played the trivia game, once again, playing the trivia games help. So we have these in every most, if not all, streams, so they will help. So you probably see some familiar names or events or concepts. And then we're going to talk about other trends like economics or migrations. And also, if you see the big green button on the, then we have a practice SAQ. You SAQ fans, you get to answer that. So just you can type your answers. Actual AP teachers will give you feedback, so you get real-time responses and realistic responses from experts other than your teachers. So once again, practice SAQ, big green button. It should be on your screen. So decolonization. Once again we have a poll, and I asked how much do you think you know about decolonization, and 5 of you guys voted like that's a word. Yeah, it is a word. But unlike most, because there are a couple of history terms that are like confusing, like proselytization. I don't know how to pronounce it, but um, basically, like you want to look at the root word of the words. So you see colonization, decolonization. So colonization means like you're acquiring territories from like overseas, like Britain took control of America, or the French took control of India, Vietnam. So decolonization basically means it literally D means like you undo something. So it's the end of colonization across the globe. This happens after World War II, or even during the or after the Cold War, where everyone's just done because they realize because Remember, who's fighting here? The Allies, the Axis powers. And where did they get all these war materials? Where did they get all the resources? Where did they get where did they get all these raw materials? It's from the colonies. So India, let's say Britain gets their supplies from India and other colonies. So let's say India's like, I'm done. You're basically exploiting us. Africa's like, you're exploiting us. Like, they're done. So decolonization, once again, just basically means like you're ending it. You're ending imperialism. You're ending the old school, like, oh, the more colonies you get, the better I am. The closer I am to become a global superpower. It's over. So looking at the chat, they talk about you guys talk about happy or hip. That's usually that's what you use for source analysis. And we're gonna do some little practice for that later. So once again, decolonization, you're undoing centuries, decades of imperialism. You're undoing colonialism. You're bad, right? This there was a so I also had like this I had a stream yesterday in practice, and Nisa is just very good at like analogies. Okay. Colonies declare. Also, if you guys have, also if you guys have a question, just put the ask a question bar so I can directly address it. Otherwise, you can just chill out in the chat. So, colonies declare independence. Once again, they're done. Bad breakup time. They're out. They're done. So they want to start their own nations, and usually they're being powered by like nationalism. Like, they get that patriotism. Like, we got to get rid of these colonizers. You know. Um, and it's either peaceful or violent. So if you did the trivia, some of them are peaceful, some of them are violent, as in, some of them led to loss of lives, casualties, injuries. Some of them were like, hey, you're just negotiating your independence. Like, they're pretty kind of you. India was peaceful, yes. Thanks to Gandhi, just call it. Look, the next slide is a Gandhi. Okay, so first, let's just talk about India. Because India is actually a common example, but it's a good one to use if you want to stay safe in your LEQ, DBQ, SAQ. Short, yeah. So, what happened in India? Britain promised independence in World War One, because remember, World War One, it's like the first global war, like not first global, the first like the Great War to end all empire. So they were promised like, oh, we're broke. We spent a lot of money, trying to like fight the Central Powers. So we just broke. We can't sustain you guys. So they did promise that, but interwar years, the rise of Hitler, more conflicts overseas, like it goes to the back of the priority list. So it didn't happen even after World War II. So Indians were like, we got to do something. This is where it's not only Mahatma Gandhi, by the way. So he didn't carry the entire squad, the entire country. He was the leader of the Indian National Congress, which is usually, you see this as a pattern later on too. Usually it's like a group. It's not just it's either a person, but he's part of a group that um, sets in stone like a path to independence. So here we have the Indian National Congress, where they keep negotiating. They keep asking the British. They send letters. They correspond with British leaders. Like, we want an independent nation. We're done. Like, you don't have the right to be here. You're not welcome here. So we see that with the nonviolence movements. And if you want to specify a good example, it's a Self March, where I think they ban let's see, they ban because they don't let like salt to be like harvested, so like Gandhi just like walks with this like handful of salt with like all his followers to protest like we call it unconstitutional here, but like the absurdity of this rule. And once again, I think you guys mentioned earlier, yeah, the march, March 19, yeah, but it is symbolic. It's symbolic of their resistance. It's like how the Cold War, like the Berlin Wall, is a symbol. So going back, India had the peaceful independence. So They're done. Harsh taxes is solid. Yeah, thank you for the correction. Yeah, I was like, I should have. Yeah. So, solved monopoly. Peaceful independence by 1947. Now, that the story doesn't stop there. So in India, there are so there, you know, even in everywhere, there are minority groups, there are majority groups. So here in India, the majority groups are the Hindus. So we're talking about religion here, like religious beliefs. Even today, religion shapes man's culture. So India had like the majority of Hindus and the minority of Muslims, and that's once again that's where you get the Jin Ali Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and like how Gandhi had the Indian National Congress backing him up, Muhammad Ali Jinnah had the Muslim League backing him up. They basically want they basically want like a separate Muslim state because they're afraid. They're not really afraid. They're just worried that but the majority always has the power, even in Congress or in any legislative body. They had the power. They had the power to like pass the rules that they want to pass. So knowing how culture plays a role, that's how they were like, oh, nothing's gonna happen, nothing's gonna go our way. We're gonna get the short end of the stick. So let's split up. Let's have a separate Muslim state. So that's why Pakistan was created. That's what that mentioned. Yeah, they didn't want Hindus in control. So this is where you get the partition of Indian Pakistan. If you look at the map, green is Pakistan. So you'll see it took a chunk out India, and it led to mass my eventually yes Bangladesh. So we will see that also in the globalization era later on. But the main idea, like the first partition here, was like in India and Pakistan. So you see in the map here, like it's not just happy. It's not just like all rainbows and unicorns. So there were Hindus living in the Pakistan area. Yeah, yeah, I can. So Hindus, they're all Hindus living in the Pakistan like region, like now that you see in the map. There are also Muslims living in India. So that led to mass migrations between both sides. And so all these families had to leave their like homes, like their lives behind just to get to this like these separate states. Which we'll talk about again later. So now we had South Asia. Now we're moving to Africa. So it wasn't really uniform. Africa is a huge continent, so things things ended in one of two ways. I mentioned earlier, peaceful or violent. So let's start with violent, just to get out of the way, because I like peace and all. I'm pacifist. So Kenya. So if you did the trivia, you probably came up in one of the questions. Once again, you don't need to know specific countries here. You just need to know a general idea. I mean, you're probably knowing one or two examples are good for both sides. So yeah. So the Mama movement. So this leader Jomo Kenyatta, he's one of those like staunch nationalists. Like we want to get rid of those Europeans as soon as possible. So usually, history, revolution comes in one of two ways. Either it's a peaceful revolution where they just protest civil disobedience once again in India, or it goes like violently, just kill like the local soldiers, the local officers over there, the local officials over there, like as a symbol. So the Mama movement did that, and thousands were killed. So that's one of the instances. It's gonna be a pattern here. So Algeria, it's another thing that came up on the trivia. It was occupied by the French, and here they use guerrilla warfare. Usually, you probably heard that term, but guerrilla warfare usually is when you have less people in numbers. Yeah, Algerian independence. It was a violent independence movement. So guerrilla warfare basically it's like usually it's effective if you have less people and you're familiar with the location. So the Algerians had that advantage. They know it more. They know it more than we know it more than the French who occupied it, who were switched out. They were rotated. They were rotated in and out. They know it more, so they were able to like use like ambushes, camouflage. Okay, going to the chat real quick. What caused these movements and events turn violent? Usually, once again, I mentioned it's usually not usually, just yes, staunch nationalism. They're just like so done because if you're a local, you see your country being exploited during the war. You're like, because it's not just like especially in World War II. It's not just soldiers being there like, oh, we're just gonna borrow your land, we're gonna fight. No, they even usually took advantage of the locals. They like abuse them. They even like the rape, pillage, like what you see in a war. So they're just done with that, and either that or there's usually like a trigger event that just starts the entire chain. So let's say there's like an incident, and there's like an incident. Let's say like this Algerian or Kenyan and like a European guy fighting, and then it just they just use it as a but then things escalate. So something you're gonna use as a scapegoat or a justification to just start, you turn to violence because if violence is usually the easier. Unfortunately, it's like the easier way out. Because your voice will be heard when you're like it's too late, and yeah. All right, Nigeria. Now I had an asterisk there because there was a revolution, there was independence there, but I want to focus on like separate after the revolution, after Nigeria became independent, colonies, yeah. Nigeria became independent. They had like a separatist movement. So separate. They want to be like so within Nigeria. There's like civil conflict. So you need to know the exact name, but it'd be good if you're memorizing. So it's called the Biafra secessionist movement, where I think part of the Nigerians were yeah, civil war. Part like one side of the Nigerian like the country used like were like saying like, oh, these this other side of the Nigerians were committing crimes against other ethnic groups. So once again they use it as justification to like separate, to fight, to um just wage conflict, just to fulfill like ulterior motives. Yeah. Okay. Portugal. Now, Portugal, not Portugal, Angola. So the Angola was controlled by the Portuguese. By the way, um, don't forget, like, because I know, like, when I took this, I was on your shoes, I was like, wait, how did Portugal or like France or Britain like took control of these places? Don't forget, it was the scramble for Africa like centuries ago. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'm just naming like a couple examples here. So I'm not naming all of the examples here. Um, so if you want to do some extra Berlin conference, yes, Scramble for Africa. If you want to do some extra learning, like you want to read more about these, feel free to. So the Angolans first tried to like be similar to like the Indians or the Ghanans, which will go over in the nonviolent side, but when Portugal sent troops, they like suppressed them with like violence. So Angolans will realize like, oh, well, I guess fight violence with violence. So similar thing happened in Angola. And this is also another vacuum. No, another vacuum. It's another like continuity. Usually, when there's a revolution and doesn't end like smoothly, usually there's a power vacuum, and power vacuums usually are like red flags for like dictatorships because everything's in like chaotic. Everything's in chaos. So everything's in chaos. So I love our power vacuums. Everything's in chaos. So some people are like they're gonna try to rally people behind. and go like, oh, I'll fix this like as soon as possible. Like I'll use absolute force. They love that word, absolute force. So um, that's a pattern too. Okay. What's scrambled for Africa you mentioned around the era of the slave trade? So the slave trade, technically, I would generally like the time. I would put it like the 1450. So like during like the age of exploration era, like Christopher Columbus, like Vasco da Gama, like that era until like the 1750s, before the Industrial Revolution, or kind of along those like almost like pretty close time pretty close time frames. But so the scramble for Africa is around it's actually like shortly after that. So it is around that. It's around like closely to the end of the slave trade. So there we go. Going back, nonviolent. So I think I only have like two or three examples here. Because unfortunately, more people resorted to violence. Oh, sorry. Do you guys can you hear me? Just making sure. Just say yeah or okay. Got it. So Ghana, it's one of those. I think it's in the trivia, but Kwame Nkrumah probably botched it. So, nonviolence usually either negotiate their independence, or they do some correspondence. Like they're like couple like deal behind the door, like behind the scenes deals, and the European nation involved. So like either Britain just didn't have any resources to like maintain control over the region. So these, let's say like let's say yeah, because the better way, if you just if you're like out of money or capital, just let go. You like peacefully, just let him be, rather than just risk losing more troops, more money, more like prestige. And because even if Britain was like already defeated, kind of defeated, like they're done, like in terms of like global popularity, they still had like some little face left. So there's Ghana from the British. And once again, boycotting, civil disobedience, those are some strategies. Protesting fall under violent, non-violent. It would fall, well, protesting itself falls under non-violent. But if things turn like it like things 360 turns to like a massacre or a bloodbath, well that's why it starts turning violent. So usually depends on how Europeans react. Here they turn nasty. Usually how the European or the colonizers react, that's where we get to determine what it's violent, non-violent. Yeah. French West Africa and its namesake West Africa. So the French actually were like, for some reason, they were notorious in ruling harshly in Africa. So people usually, once again, you need a catalyst. So this is where you see protests, and thankfully, they started once again because remember World War II. They were liberated, not liberated. They were first invaded. They fell, and they were eventually liberated. So while they were recuperating, um, they they didn't just let him go easily. They were like, oh, I'll just have like you indirect rule. So they just have like local. I'll let you have your basically saying like I'll have your local rulers do that, do the ruling, and then you just report to us. And then eventually, once they realize, oh yeah, it's doing fine. And remember, there's Woodrow Wilson's 14 points, and was mentioned after World War I. It mentioned like self-determination, that the fact that European colonizers will let them go once they see that they're fit, like they're ready to rule on their own. So Tiananmen Square. Okay, you're set. So you guys are very engaging. So let's do this real quick. True or false? Like just put the number and the true or false. So I don't know if you can speed run that. Okay, one is false. Two is true. Yep. 3 is false. Nisa said it's false. Yep, it's not a Muslim League. And 4 is true. Yep. Y'all nailed it. Y'all nailed it. Yeah, you're all ready. Okay, moving on. Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh. So, if you remember, we're gonna learn more about, like, the Vietnam War. So this was actually a civil war between, like, they call it the nationalists and the and like, because some argue they call it nationalists and the communists, and eventually it ends up with a communist rising. It's one of those going back to the Cold War. This were like one of those proxy wars. Remember, proxy wars between so other than Vietnam and Korea. So it's usually one of the two. North and South Vietnam War, yes. North, I think one of them was led by Ho Chi Minh, and the other was led by Ngon Diem. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce the name, but basically, eventually, the communists win, and what once again, usually when you win a war, like, it's not like you immediately, like, gain their loyalty. So, you still have to use force. You have to use violence. You have to threaten people, like, and their families, so just so you can have them obey you. So you have to use violence to consolidate the rule. And once again, Vietnam War. Yep, it's just a breakdown. Communists versus nationalists. So technically, we're talking about decolonization. We're talking about how Vietnam, like, gained their independence from the French, which it's not through the Civil War. This is just what happens afterwards. But basically, the French try to come back, and they just repel it. It's like what happened in Cambodia, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, um, once again, so French Indochina is not actually just one. It's not just Vietnam. It's like a region on the Southeast Asia, and also, yeah, in Southeast Asia. So part of it was Vietnam, part of it was Cambodia. So yes, Indonesia. Indonesia is a weird word. Y'all funny. Okay. France fails to retake Cambodia in World War II. Once again, same pattern with Vietnam. Same pattern with West Africa. Like, they're just done. I mean, they're just done in terms of, like, military might, um, influence, power. Like, people are just, like, being nationalist and being patriotic, just, like, want to get them out. So remember what happens during Civil War? Not a Civil War, but usually when there's, like, you just dispose stuff. Not dispose is a strong word. You got rid of the old leaders. So it's there's a power vacuum, because imagine you're under their rule for hundreds of years, and now they're gone. Like, so now what? So we have a power vacuum, and this is where authoritarian leaders fight for power. And it's like the flowchart. There's a chaos. There's fighting. Eventually, though, communists actually thrive in, like, chaos. Kind of. It's like, going back to their ideologies is like, we got to overthrow the bourgeoisie. I don't know how to pronounce that right, but you got to overthrow the upper class, the wealthy. So that's where you see the yeah, Pol Pot. So he's one of the leaders of the Khmer Rouge, which is the Communist Party. So I had this misconception before that Khmer Rouge is like a group. It's like a terrorist group. No, it's never a terrorist group. It's like a communist party. It's like a CCP, or the Red Party in Russia, CCP in China. So it's named after Khmer Empire. History. Yep, going back to, like, history before, like, the age of colonialism. So Pol Pot um, actually forced, like, collectivization of our agriculture and farms, which is similar to our neighbor from its north, Russia, and even China, in a sense. So it's where you see collectivization, and like China and Russia, if you're against the policies, if you're dissenting, you're dead, like the guy in the picture. Also, that's just a reenactment of. So basically, that guy, slitting the guy's throat is part of the Khmer Rouge, and I would say that the guy being killed is the dissenter. So, Tanya, a random question: Will Rasputin that Saint Nicholas be an AP exam? Probably more in AP Euro. So, there's higher chances in AP Euro than AP World, but you never know. But yeah, I would say it's more an AP Euro question. Going east, no, going west, Israel. So he did once again trivia. Um, so World War II, right? What happened in Germany? The Holocaust, and so it just perpetuated. It just continued this vicious cycle of anti-Semitism, and the Israelis were just kind of the same tide as like nationalist tide as everyone else. So Jewish diasporic community. So diaspora means like they're like away from their homeland. So imagine if you're an American and like there's like a group of you in France, you can call yourself a diasporic community. So it's like a basically like an expat, something like that. So at some point they're just done and just want to demand their own nation. They didn't want like we didn't want a separate Jewish nation. And it's this movement is called the Zionist movement or Zionism, basically, where they just demanded like we want our own separate nation. If India, I mean no, if Pakistan was able to do it, then why not us? Right? So he got European support and UN supported it. So if you look at the map, you see the let me see. It's the ones in orange. You see that's Israel, and if you look at it, it's like a weird. That's I wouldn't call it a country. I would do a country, it'd be like it's like as a whole, like the border. But that's like carved out. That's like you're you're taking up space from the. It's like Pakistan, which is yeah looks really contorted. But so this I mean not but this is why the Arabs are mad because this is like why like two that's like a normal reaction when you lose territory like Palestine no Pal- yeah Palestinians who are in this Israel area their Israel region are like what we're just chilling here, what are you doing, um and so that leads to conflicts. They're not happy. So Palestinians once again are Arabs, Israelis are Jews. So once again, culture plays a role, religion plays a role. So they're not happy. Conflicts. You still see conflicts up to this day. You know, if you see news like the occupation, like years ago, the occupation of the Gaza Strip, West Bank, there's still back and forth conflict between the two. And we also see the Yom Kippur War, where and the 6 Day War, where they just invade each other because they're like demand like why are you not opening this like trade passageway for us, or the other side's like why are you taking our land, you know, they're just done, they just keep fighting and even anytime sooner I don't think we'll see a compromise. I mean there was like truces but there's not an actual compromise. Let's see. Unequal territory distribution also contributing economy. Yes, that's actually the number in one of the top reasons, not only in religious reasons, but also the territory. Once again, it's like a natural reaction. It's like how let's say you have a bag full of candy and you have a younger brother. So your mom takes candy from you and it gives to your younger brother. You're like, why? It's my candy. You know, you just you get that feeling, you resentment. It's not fair for me. Like, why are you taking from me? Why are you giving it to him? You know, it's the same idea, same analogy for land. All right, we're back to another test your knowledge. Find a commie. So there's six options out of the ones we talked about earlier. So there's more than one. So find a commie. All right. I just wait for everyone to at least answer. So okay. Okay. Last call. What's the question? Yeah, find a which one's the communist country? All right. So, yep, y'all agree it's Cambodia and under Pol Pot and Vietnam under Ho Chi Minh. All right. So that's an overview of decolonization. I know I haven't talked about China, so I might do a quick insert in that. Um, well, technically, China counts under decolonization, but it wasn't really. The only part you would count under decolonization would be China being like all of those anti-Japanese rebellions during, no, not during, shortly after World War II. And then once again, it all goes back to Mao Zedong. So wait, let me see. Yeah. So you can attribute it back to Mao Zedong, right? Saying the Chinese Civil War, the nationalists and the communists, and then the communists were fleeing the nationalists, anti-Japanese sentiment. Yes, Yang Kang, anti-Jap the communists were fleeing the nationalists. There's a long march, and then eventually they clap back, they win, and Mao Zedong rises to power, and then this is where we always see the great leap forward, like the same idea, collectivization of agriculture. But this is more like Cold War era. So if you want to do a recap of that, we also have like a stream of the Cold War. So oh, you guys talking about the unicorn question in the chat? Impossible point, yeah. Okay, so yeah, my mistake. So governments guided the economic life too during the decolonization because once again, you just became independent. So if no one did anything, it'll be chaotic. Like, what are we gonna do? So are we just gonna let things be? And they don't even. Oh yeah, next week Cold War. Oh yeah, with Mr. Beckman's, which is in the chat right now. Um, they don't want to repeat the same mistakes, the same government styles before. So they try to make changes, the changes they wanted to do. So in India, once again, you need to just look at the general trend here. That's how AP World works. So you need to trivia works for evidence. So India, they nationalized banks, they nationalized insurance, and coal in industries like coal. So So this means that businesses need permission to do anything. Like the state has control over these industries. So so that's how India tried to change for the better. In Egypt, the Suez Canal was nationalized during the Cold War. That's why the U.S. and Europeans were mad, and Israel was mad because why are you taking control of the canal we all use? That's unfair. And Gamal Abdel Nasser, who was the ruler of Egypt at this time, he promoted the growth of the middle class. So you're seeing the trend here of so remember the social hierarchy triangle thingy. So they're helping bring up, they're bolstering the less fortunate classes, the less privileged classes. They're giving them equal playing field, and they broke large estates. So that means that your 20 mansions will only be like one mansion now because we'll distribute the rest of the 19 to everyone else. Just some not really obscure, but just a random example of Tanzania. They did modernize, so you'll see this too as a pattern: decolonization, globalization. They start to modernize. Um, they're getting rid of like the old style of like business, industry, government. They're trying to like change the ways, trying to model the West, follow the West. This is where you see universal education, literacy. They realize that we need more educated people, you know, to make better choices, to vote the right leaders. So you see that too, and we see Sri Lanka. They had like nationalized industries as well, same to India, same to Egypt. And they decreased the wealth gap, like Egypt. So what do y'all have in common? They all were like friendly. All of them are friendly to the people. All of them are friendly to the majority. It's not just because old school, eh, only the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. That was the premise of the world before the Industrial Revolution. That's why the middle class came to existence. They all helped grow the middle. They all helped grow the middle class. Thanks, Nissa. So this is the key word. Like this is the key similarity you want to say when you. So key word like governments guide the economic, like guide means they're helping something to prosper. Nissan's fire. Okay, mass migration. So we briefly touched upon a few of them earlier. So the world is becoming more and more interconnected. Not like today, but still. World War I, World War II, the Cold War helped decolonization even help everyone become more interconnected. So people are more inclined to move elsewhere for opportunities. So this is where we see the mass migrations in. First of all, what reasons would be like to escape from political and economic crisis at home. So let's say there were Russian refugees trying to escape. Like think of like the Cold War, like East Germany, West Germany. East Germans were trying to escape to the West side because they realized, oh, capitalism works. So East they, Russia had to build the Berlin Wall because they realized, oh no, why are they doing this? So do you want to escape from the crisis at home? Cambodia, we know some Cambodian immigrants here. We know some Vietnamese who want to flee from the Vietnam War. So there's that. To name a couple, and they're typically from people from former colonies to colonizers. Eastern and road. Yang Kang. Um, no. Former colonies to colonizers. So I think in some trivia questions, the ones that are now because I know some of them are weirdly worded, but that's what you see the Filipinos to the U.S. or you see the not the Dutch to let's see, I'm trying to remember this. Even like groups like the Jewish to Israel from like all these separate diasporic communities. So here's some examples. Once again, South Asians to Britain. So we see once again trend former colonies to colonizers. So South Asians to Britain, so Indians to Britain, Filipinos to the U.S. Quite an obscure fact, but the Philippines is one of those American colonies before the U.S. had before World War I. So it was I think Philippines, Cuba, Puerto Rico. Algerians to France. Once again, Algeria was a French colony before the before it was independent. Jews to Israel. Once again, they finally fulfilled their Zionist dreams. So we move and Samoa too. Yep, they tend to be more industrialized. Yeah, if you think about it, because you just started your economy, so don't expect it to be like as advanced as the colonizer. So once again, they run towards opportunities. So they want like they want money, financial success, success, success in life, better social welfare. So Muslims to Pakistan, Hindus to India. So this is the one of the deadliest ones. Like millions die along the way. It's not because like I mean part of it is because like they were fighting on. It's not because it's not just like a street brawl. Everyone's fighting each other in the streets, but it's because of like the distances too that they had to travel. If you look at a map, it sure looks pretty close. What do you mean? But they were just they were they had to bring their families. They had to leave everything behind. So their stable job or um whatever the remnants of that they had to leave behind just to avoid being discriminated and yeah being ostracized. So yeah, once again, overpopulation. I mean starvation um too. Okay, so that's mass migrations. We went over governments guiding the economy. They say economies. Okay, economies of newly independent states. Now we have nonviolent political change. This is just a broad like overview. So I'll just gonna name a couple examples. Some that are really familiar. So Nelson Mandela, South Africa. So post I think Dutch like after the Nether after South Africa was independent from the Netherlands, there was this rule called apartheid, which means that thank you, Ranamide. Apartheid means that basically segregation. It's like how this is before the civil rights movement in America. Segregation in schools, in jobs, in labor, in everything, even in politics. There's segregation between blacks and whites. So Nelson Mandela stood up against that, and he was one of those beacons of nonviolence and political change. LK Jr. Now, this isn't really decolonization, but in this era, we see more openness, we see more liberalism, we see more like ears like listening to like everyone wanting change. Part of Cecil Rhodes, trivia. Um, versus black segregation, same idea as apartheid. Gotta enact change. So apartheid once again, it's like the South African term for like segregation in jobs, in labor, in schools, in I was naming a couple examples earlier. I was on a roll. In public places, racial segregation, and to a certain extent white supremacy too. But it's like more of a charge word. But that is true. So lastly, Mohandas Gandhi versus Britain. So this is more going back to decolonization. So going back to like we want to be independent, like that original stance. And just in general, civil disobedient protesters against colonizers in Africa, like what's her name earlier, but Gold Coast, Ghana, um, all those places. Probably in change over time. So it's one of those skills that you want to know in AP World. So what continued? Social structure. So technically the status quo wasn't changed. You just kicked out the guys on the top, but not all decolonized states were able to like do a complete reform. It's just like, oh hey, we're on the top now. I guess there's new people on the bottom. Yeah, it kind of continued. Social structure and like cultural not so but like traditions continued, religions continued. So yeah, Hinduism continued in India. Israel had not Israel, but Africans practice the same either they call this Islam or Christianity. They still practice the same religions. However, there's a lot of changes. Power dynamics. Once again, power dynamics are talking about in the general world as a world. Like remember Cold War. I mean, before the World Wars, it was Europe and kind of the U.S. During the Cold War, U.S. Soviet Union. After the Cold War, decolonization, it's just like there's we barely see superpowers. I mean, we obviously there's still like the U.S. and like Soviet Union still, but local states have more like what's the term? They have more supervision. They have more control on over these lands, over their local state, other than just being like puppet leaders or yeah, because it's super after World War II. So, hmm I'm sorry. I think yeah, new political boundaries. Africa before was just a couple of slices. Like if it was a pie, it was just like a couple of slices, probably like 10 to 15 slices or 25. But it kind of doubled because we see more conflict. We see them. It started the same first, but we see ethnic conflicts. We see like, oh, you ruled. Because remember, before Europeans came to Africa, there were like tribal tensions, and when Europeans came to scramble Africa, Berlin Conference, like they were like redefined. So now that they're gone, they're kind of going back to kind of the modern day versions of yeah, yes, Yang Kang remember Israel and Palestine continues. Um, India and Pakistan continues. You know, like there's still like friction between those sides. Tensions between ethnic groups. Even today, there's still genocides in like Rwanda, if you have heard of it, or ethnic cleansing within Myanmar. So there's still like just because of the common enemy. So like you know that concept, your enemy is my enemy. Yeah, but what happens now? If our enemy is gone, we're back to enemy. We're back to being enemies. So can't help it. So there's still local conflict and civil wars and tensions between ethnic groups. So real quick, we're gonna practice some. It's a mix actually. So let's start with an SAQ from 20. I think it's 17. So I'll have you guys read the passage and then answer 1A and 1B in the chat. Just once again, just identify an example of. Actually, you can choose not to read it, but if you're that confident, but if you want a refresher, go for it. Try to I know there's like some obvious examples outside of this stream, but try to use like the ones we just went over tonight. No worries. Yeah. Just looking for practice. So an example for Cambodia. Yes, that's actually what we're going for. Yeah. Government. Yes. Tiananmen Square massacre. Yes. 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 So you already said China. You already said Cambodia. Tyler said Britain. I think you talked about B. So yes, I'll explain as because Britain once again it's like the decolonization. It's not. It wasn't the policies weren't consistent in every place. So Serbian massacre, Cambodia, yes, 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 y'all killing it. So usually it's in Africa. So remember how we said like in Angola the Portuguese crushed the rebellions, like and then when things went Ari. It's something along those lines. It's like you can argue any of the European countries um tried to crush rebellions in Africa and even Asia to maintain the status quo. Yes. Holocaust, yes, that's one of the examples. It's like Holocaust, Great Purge, Great Leap Forward. Yes, so Salem witch trials. Let's see. Oh yeah, you gotta focus. Not focus, but you gotta look at the time period. It says 20th century. So Salem witch trials would be it would be a right answer, but it'd be like early or way early. Russia under Stalin's rule. So let's see, what do you say? Rwanda genocide, Rwanda massacre, 20th century. Yes, you can. Yeah, it started late 1900s. So, all right, y'all killed it. So let's take a document here. I'll have you read it real quick, and actually, because the prompt is, I'll just have you guys like do like the easiest, like either do hip hop, or but just only do one of the four for hip. So I'll go back to the. Oh yeah, yeah. Ottoman Empire. Talking about the Armenian genocide. Yes, it works. Yankang. So looking back here, try to find out either the historical context or the audience or the purpose or the POV. Let's see, to get those DBQ skills polished. So you don't have to name all of them, just name one. Like either what's happening, what's going on, who is the memoir addressed for, or what's the purpose, or what's the POV of these guys. French. Yep, today's people reading a publication. Yeah, that's even today. That's how it's how I just say it. Like today's people, whoever's reading this, that's audience. Yeah, I'll take that. Let's see. Let's add like 30 more seconds. 20, 30, let's keep it away. Mm-hmm. Related to yes. Purpose related to yes. Yes. POV or purpose, they kind of overlap. Oh, by the way, when you're doing the hip happy cap, like sorry cap, but hip happy happy, there can be overlaps between like two of the components. So yes, French occupied Algeria, that's the context. Nationalism, yeah, they promote nationalism. See, like they they're bombers, and they explain the motivation between Algerian and French. Yes, I don't know. Hippo, my teacher said that O means outside information, so I guess POV would be um woman. You know, the title says women freedom fighters. You can say that if you take it literally, but you can take it more broadly, nationalists in Algeria justify why there is no regret putting bombs in public places. Yeah, yeah. Once again, there's no one single answer here, unless it's really bonkers. But there's no wrong answer here. Um, as long as you can argue it excellently, you're good. Yeah. Okay, so I think we're good for that. Let's look at one last. I think it's the last document. Yeah, it's the last document. So this is same place, Algeria. So, but this is actually not what it seems to be. Just like some little context. So we don't know if Algerians resisted decolonization of the French, but this barricade, like you see that little banner there, it's meant to protect a French neighborhood. You're like, why? They're enemies. Because this general, like if you can see the name Masu, he was a French general who fought for independence. He's one of those like he's not a traitor to the French, but he's more sympathetic towards the those pixels are beautiful. Yeah. Oh wow. So sorry about that. Um. So yeah, he resisted. He resisted. He was like different from every other French dude who's like, you know what? Let's keep suppressing them. It says Vive Massa. He opposed Algerian independence. Yes. Mm-hmm. So let's go to good old multiple choice question. The image shown best supports which of the following statements? Yes, soldier protect his home. But just focus at the actually yeah, just focus at the like imagine not seeing the context. Like imagine I didn't say anything. Just look at what the rubble means. The rubble. Like yep. Process elimination. It would not be dictatorships. Didn't say anything in the picture. And it's not always a dictatorship. Think of India. It's an exception. African decolonization was different. No, it's pretty much the same. It's either violent, non-violent. Remember, quality independent. Yes, violence and confrontations. The fact that this general is resisting the majority opinion, like he's fighting for independence for these people, and the fact that he's fighting, like he's not just like a mental or like a ready like a fight on words. It's like they had to use force. You see this? Not enough info for C. Once again, not enough info. That's a bad red flag. So he's brave. Yes, he's brave. So you see the rubble. So it's not something you can just talk or have a tea party on. Yeah, it goes against A. Yeah. So yeah, A and B are polar opposites. So nice. Yep, this is the last one. This is just addition. This just goes. This is like an add-on. So to the one we did earlier, like identify, but it's more of a name like specific. Yeah, answer one part only. You don't have to answer all of them. But it'd be good if we see answers from two A, B, and C. A is good try. Kenya. Yeah, that's the thing though. Yeah, don't get thrown up by the because Kenya actually is one of those. It's the Mau Mau movement. It's one of the violent ones. So it would actually be never mind. It would be an answer. Yeah. 2C is different strategy. Yes, India, Pakistan. Same strategy. Yes, Sunny. That's a strategy, but Oh yeah, you can say it's a movement. So I was thinking more of a country, or a nation. So I would say um actually no. Sorry, correction. Yeah, I was thinking the peaceful one. So yeah, Kenya is correct. Kenya is correct. Sorry. Kenya works. Kenya works. So B, outside of the region that used the same tragedy of violence, you have Vietnam, the ghetto walls. You can argue. Just keep adding on. Vietnam works. Also yeah, Kenya works for 2A. 2C, different strategies. So think of peaceful outside. So India. I think there's I think that's the only one. No, there's another one. There's like a couple. Yeah. The best thing that pops up here is India. So you guys are good? No questions? No. Oh wait, sorry. Let me look at your answer again, Tanya. What do you mean when you Oh, see, Pakistan and Bangladesh. Technically, I would stick with India for like a more solid answer because when readers see India, you think of Gandhi, and like if you think of Pakistan itself, but like separation, actually it works too. Yeah, if you keep explaining, yeah, it will work. It will work. You're right, Tanya. All right. Any further questions? Final questions? No. If not, thank you guys. If you want to keep continuing the debate on DBQs, LAQs, SAQs, just keep on keep on doing that on the chat. But thank you guys. You guys did good. I'll email the replay for this stream will come here soon. They're all free. They're all downloadable. Tomorrow, game of fives, trivia match. If you want to beat Goku, drag him down, you know, someone got to overthrow him. So, thank you guys once again. Two of them. Thank you guys. I love you guys. You're real being active, man. You killed the game. Stand Fiveable. Fiveable. Hopefully, we get a TikTok soon. All right. I guess that's adios. Thank you guys. See ya. Let's see. Bye bye.